Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to Straight Talk with Grover Thornton, a program designed to inform, educate, and inspire you so you can know how governments, state, local, and national impact our lives. There's so many critical things going on in the nation today. Um, it's just so many things. And Black History is over for the month of February, but like the gentleman wrote the article said, everybody's Black History. And I think when I could talk about Black History, it's for our benefit and for our children, because you know what's going on in Florida with that sorry man, Governor DeSantis. He wants to move all of Black history out of the schools. They're threatening the board education members, and they are not trying to convey the right type of information to people. They want people to realize and to think that America has always been a nation where all citizens are treated the same. And if you look at this right here, one thing this gentleman right here, Abraham Lincoln say that this terrible condition of slavery, this monstrous condition, will have people to think that we're supposed to have a republic form of government, and that they would think that we're a bunch of hypocrites. And that's exactly what our country is. And it all started with this gentleman right here. To be a citizen, I told you about him in the past, but that's Dred Scott, the gentleman that was a slave that belonged to a doctor who was a military officer, and he was transferred. You know, as military people transfer you all around and do it to a duty here, there, and yonder. So he was transferred to Illinois. So when he was a free territory, he thought that then he could be free, get his freedom and be a free man. But it went before the Supreme Court, and the court rejected him, saying that he did not have no rights, that a white man has a right to honor. Secondly, he was not a citizen of the nation, and he had no right in the first place to bring a suit before the Supreme Court. So, and we came here in 1619, and from 1619 up to down, we've been over 400 years, and we still fight for freedom. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about this gentleman tonight, but our next section, next month, Lord's willing, I'm going to tell you about this gentleman right here. This gentleman right here, Willie Lynch, a man that lived in the West Indies. He was a plantation owner of slaves, and they invited him to come to America to tell them how to control black folk. And I'm not going to use the N-word, but you know what he called them. And I'm not going to use that on my show. But that's one of the things that I'm going to tell you about, some of the things, and how he taught things to intimidate, fear, confusion, chaos among the people. But I will tell you about him next month, because we got a guest on our show tonight, a very distinguished guest in my judgment. And you'll know who he is shortly. Next thing I want to tell you now, when it started in 1896, after the Plessy case, the decision came out on separate but equal. I'm finished with that. Separate but equal. Now I'm going to show you when this is separate but equal, and black people were always treated terrible. They never was equal, but it always was separate. They even at the University of Oklahoma, I think it was Oklahoma, but they're going to argue the case to get a person who has a degree, but he wanted to get a master's degree from that university, and this institution applied the separate but equal doctrine. When the young man was in the classroom, they put a wall. Oh my gosh, some white people. They installed a wall between him and the other classes, so he's separate, but he's getting the equal treatment like the white students were getting. America, supposed to be a country of democracy, still a hypocritical country. Now, here's what I want to show you, a pearl example of the separate but equal. Now, look at these two. Look very careful at these two water fountains that I'm going to show you. Two water fountains that I'm going to show you. You see how terrible? Look at the one black folk had to drink out of. Look at the one nice one the white folk had to drink out of. And look at the pipes that are running under each fountain. All the water coming from the same place. How ridiculous. Like Robert Kennedy said when he was testifying for the Civil Rights Bill, he said a white prostitute could go into any hotel in the South with a dog. When a black man, educated man, whether he's educated or not, he's a human being. But just let's say for an educated man, a doctor, lawyer, school teacher, some professional person, could not go in where a dog could go in. But a prostitute, unbelievable. That's why they don't want the white children to know how they treat the black people. But this critical race theory business, they want them to believe that America has always been a sweet country. You have to tell the history. America has been a terrible country with respect to African America. Now look how they're doing to the Jewish people even to this day. This is terrible. Semitism is terrible. How they're doing the Jewish people. But I got something to tell you, whether you like it or not. The Jewish people, God's chosen people. And I'm going to tell you, the reason why America gets blessed because the word of God says, God will bless the country that perhaps support Israel. That's why the country has been able to sustain itself. But we're falling by the wayside. Now, let me just show you, as we move on some of the history here, things that black folk have done. I want you to look at this. I apologize. I don't have an excellent picture like I had one. I gave it away. But I will get another one. But you've seen this, the picture of the U.S. Capitol. You have seen that picture on television. You've seen the picture of that Capitol. Have you seen that black statue on top of that Capitol building? You have seen it. There's no way in the world you can't. If you watch television, see the news, you had not seen that black statue. But that statue was created by a black man. I couldn't find my magazine this afternoon. I looked and looked, but if I ever find it, I will give you his name. But let me tell you the things about him. He was a slave owned by a slave master, and he did work for the government before. He was very skilled and an artist, dealing with things like metal and creating statues. So the government employed him and through his master, and they paid him. It took him 31 days or 30 days to do this. And that's been on top of that Capitol for over 200 years. But here's a sad thing. The master that owned him negotiated with the government to get the right price for the work. And I think he was given $1,500. And the black man who did, I think his name was Reed, he was given $300 something by his master. But here's the thing. He could only work on Sundays. He wouldn't let him work the rest of the week because he knew he had to pay him. He only paid him for the Sundays working. And he wound up with over $1,500, and the slave got $300 something. But I'll find my magazine before this program continue off the air, but I looked at them for a while. Now, as we move forward towards the 50s, and I want to show you this wonderful picture here. The Brown versus Board of Education. And you can see for the first time, I don't believe anybody got a picture of this man in Savannah other than me and myself, Reverend Brown. And that's his daughter, Linda, on the sofa. She was the one that had to walk 3 miles almost to school, and the white school was right behind where she lived, not far from where she lived. And Everton, Topeka, Kansas. And NAACP filed a suit, Brown versus Board of Education, before the states. It was Virginia, it was Delaware, it was South Carolina, and the District of Columbia, South Carolina. When the District of Washington, D.C., I apologize. The District was Washington, D.C. Those were the states in which, and the district that NAACP filed a suit to integrate the schools and do away with this classic case of the separate but equal. And these were first thing I wanted you to look at is the gentleman that's sitting there, Earl Warren. He was Chief Justice of the United Supreme Court. And bottom of that picture, you will see the man named Davis and Thurgood Marshall, who argued the case he's the first African American on the Supreme Court. He went before the federal court, the Supreme Court, the other judges, in the federal courts 32 times and won 29 cases. Only lost 3 cases by almost a 90% rate, a percentage for arguing cases before the court. And I want to show you this here. This is the picture of all the judges. Let me just make a statement about the white gentleman, Mr. Davis. South Carolina paid him to argue the case against black people, and for South Carolina and all those other states I named, they paid him $125,000. Now that's back in the 50s. They'll be equipped maybe $1 million now, if you're that time. But that's what they paid him to argue the case. And of course, Thurgood Marshall won the case. And this picture I want to show you right here is very important here because this is the picture of all the judges of the Supreme Court at that time. Now, this second one from my left here, Hugo Black. That's the second one from my left over here. He was from Alabama. And NAACP, they really pushed Congress and the government not to seat him on the Supreme Court because he was a racist. But you see, he changed. He knew black people had given their lives to this nation from the very inception of this country. Black folk, even the American Revolution, they fought to help America to get rid of Britain. The War of 1812, Vietnam War, War II, all of them. But they did not want him on the Supreme Court. And Earl Warren was able to convince him. And how Warren got on the court, let me tell you how Warren got on the court. Had another Supreme Court justice, his name was Vance, I believe it was. And Thurgood Marshall would always talk about the case when it was over for that particular day. And of course, the lawyers began to discuss to see where the errors might be, etc. And the chief, that justice, his name was Vance, I believe it was. He became ill. He had a heart attack. And Thurgood Marshall they was worried about him because they didn't know what position he would take during the oral arguments when they're arguing about themselves, discussing in their chambers. We'll show you how God was in everything. He died. And when he died, Thurgood Marshall felt better because Earl Warren was very active as a Republican from California. From Los Angeles, I believe it was, from California for sure. And he played football and all with black people. He knew black friends and everything. And when he became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court appointed by President Eisenhower appointed him because he was very instrumental in trying to bring the Republic of California into the election for Eisenhower. But Eisenhower sort of regretted that he made that decision because he influenced the people to do away with segregation. And we ought to know what he did in Little Rock. Eisenhower called out the troops. So to enforce the president couldn't do it, but that he had to do that because it was a Supreme Court order. And his position tells him that he must obey the court and enforce the law. He takes that when he takes that oath. So that's, I want to mention about that. Now, this lady and this gentleman here, this lady, and I've had these pictures, I want y'all to know, over 30 years or more. This lady here, she's on my left. Yes. She name is Constance Motley. She argued the case to get J.M. Merritt in the University of Mississippi. A terrible situation. Terrible. They didn't want that black man in that school. And the president had to call out the troops, President Kennedy. But let me just say this. This lady would have been the first black woman on the Supreme Court instead of Ms. Jackson, who was recently appointed. But she died. I had an opportunity to meet her. She came to Savannah to argue the case for Fred Wessels over there. Did not want black people to live in Fred Wessels. And I was in the court when she was arguing the case, a very, very fine attorney. She argued the case for the University of Georgia to get integrated. She argued the case for the University of Alabama and Mississippi. So she was very, very instrumental. Now we're moving on down now to in the late 50s. And we all know this lady right here. Thank you, ma'am. We all know that lady there, Ms. Rosa Parks. We all know her. She was the first lady that refused to give up her seat to a man. Now, I can't go along with it, period. But at least I can respect the fact they want a woman. They want her to give up seat to a man, and she would not do it. And I read an article where she said people think that that I did not get out of my seat because my feet were tired. She said, no, I sat because I paid my fare and I was entitled to the same justice as anyone else. That's why I refused to move. And here's an example when people stick together in unity, and that's what they did. And here's look at the buses. Look at them, empty. One person on the bus. They broke the bus for those 18 months or more. The bus empty. And of course, as a result of that, you know what happened? They turned around and did what? They put Martin Luther King in jail. A lot of people have not seen those pictures, I can tell you that. That's it. That's him in jail. And look at that lady, old lady. That's the lady walking with a basket on her head. Refused to get on the bus. Those people really stuck together. And this is a picture here. That's a picture there where Martin Luther King was released out of jail on a bond, and he was released on a $500 bond, and the judge released him. Waiting on appeal, but that was eventually thrown away because the Supreme Court ruled that what they were doing, segregation on the bus, was unconstitutional. There were cases on the bus where the bus driver was so nasty, black people had to step on the bus, put their fare in that container that they had for the money, and many times they would step off the bus to go get on the bus in the back, and the driver would pull off and leave them standing. How dirty that was. They have done some dirty things to black people. Dirty things, like in Birmingham, with the holes of knocking the women down with the holes of the dogs, that bloody Sunday mess. My Lord. Now, and I had another picture here to show you, and it was a picture of this one right here. In 1964, you can see President Lyndon Johnson signing the 1964 Civil Rights Bill, which gave you the right to go into the movies like anybody else, hotels, motels, movies, anybody else. And you had a right that you could sue them. So most of the people fell in line with the Supreme Court. That's an order. It's a federal law. Like Dr. King said, I can't make you love me, but the law would protect me. That's why we want to get the same treatment as any other American. Now, as a result of that, this gentleman right here, look at it real good, Lester Maddox. He had a restaurant in Atlanta called, I think it was Pick Rick, and it's a chicken restaurant. And after President Johnson signed the bill, several black gentlemen went in to buy some chicken. And so white guys were in there with some axe hounds, and they ran him out. And you got the small picture of him. He came out with a pistol. You got it? The pistol. That's him with a pistol. That's what he did against the people out of his restaurant. But here's my point why I'm saying that to you, about him. I didn't know until I was reading magazines like I always do. And he was a high school dropout. He didn't even finish high school. Lester Maddox was a high school dropout, and a black man, educated, master's degree, PhD degree, could not be governor of Georgia. Don't you see how bad and sick these white people were in the South? And a lot of them still that way today, especially in Florida right now. They're not raising hell about that man want to take history out of school, black history. You got German history, you got Japanese history. Why he want to take out African American history? It's a part of America. No, it's just as much America as the American Revolution, as the Civil War. Because they don't want these white children to see how bad they treated black people. I was looking at TV one night, and two white girls, one went to one fountain, one went to the other. One went to the one that black, and the other went to the one that white. So the one that drank out the white said to the girl that drank out the black one, she said, "Oh, you know you're drinking out that one." And she said, "Well, what's the difference? All tastes the same. I don't see no different than the taste." It's ignorance, what it is. Absolutely ignorance. When you judge a person on the basis of their color, you judge a person on the basis of the character, what type of individual it is. So I want to say that because we were going to get them so we can bring my guests on, but I just want to say I want to say this for you to know that African Americans did a great lot of things in this nation, and you want to do away with the history. I want next month when I'm going to tell you about the Willie Lynch, and I'm explaining to you about the triangular trade that brought over 10 million of us in this nation, many against our will, stolen, sold, many by our own people, sold our people to those white traders. But I want to let you know some of the things that African Americans did. For instance, for this nation, when you get ready to do your clothes and ironing, the ironing board was invented by a black woman named Sarah Boono, Boono. She invented the ironing board. A gentleman named Walter Simmons, he invented the comb that you comb your hair with. And a lady named Lydia Newman, she invented the hairbrush. And a gentleman named Lloyd Ray invented the dustpan. These are things that everybody used. They were invented by black people. And a gentleman named Thomas Stewart, he invented the mop. Maybe they did all those things because they got tired of doing these chores with other things. Might have been hard. We don't know. But they invented these things. And of course, Dr. Daniel Hale Williams did the first open heart surgery, a black man in this country. So these are the things that I wanted you to know what black folk did to make things better for everyone in this nation. Now, I want to just say one thing. We got our guests coming in. I wanted to show some of those things we have on the photo so you can look and see for yourselves. And I have many more. That was my hobby back there 25, 30 years ago. I take these articles, cut them out, had them laminated for history. I never thought I'd be doing this tonight and showing them to people. But that was my hobby. I read, and I kept the articles, cut them out, and had them laminated. And I would go into several schools and show a lot of different pictures and everything. I have them on those type of materials that you can show. Now, what I want to do now is introduce you to our guest. Is our guest all ready to come onto the show?
Not just yet. Not just yet. You want to go with the news?
Ma'am.
He's not in yet. He's not in yet.
He's not ready?
No, not yet.
Is he here tonight?
I don't see him yet.
Well, we're supposed to have had Reverend Ellis, Chester Ellis, chairman of the Community Commission. And I wanted to talk with him about things going into the community and how we situated financially and some other issues I wanted to talk with him on. I was asked why the mayor has not been on the show. I want everybody to know that I've invited him more than one time. About 3 weeks ago, I talked to his secretary. She told me that he was in Atlanta being honored as one of the most influential persons in Georgia. And I asked her, would she please inform him that I had called, and would he please call me because I wanted to invite him onto the show. I even asked my minister to invite him. So evidently, I'm sure that he would not have told me if he had not told that, and then I'm sure he had conveyed my request. But anyway, I did not hear from him. But maybe he would call me if he does, good. If he doesn't, still good. But I invited him. I invited people that I know are running for office. And when you run for office, you have an obligation to appear on programs to let people know how you stand on issues. That should be nomenclature for everybody. So I did my job, invited him. Now, I don't know whether Justice Ellis, I don't know what happened. They could not make the connection, you don't think?
He's not on. They're trying to find out. He's not on right now.
So he was supposed to have been contacted with a link to appear on the show. So I'll have to check with him to find out what happened. But we still have some more time, and so maybe we'll talk a few more minutes. I didn't know that this was going to happen. Also, I want you to look at this gentleman here. If anybody's ever had an operation, you owe that to him. Dr. Charles Drew, a black man, created a blood bank, the plasma in the blood. So you get that, the Red Cross. So I called the Red Cross a month or so, and I asked the lady, did she have a picture of Dr. Drew hanging up in the Red Cross? She said, yeah, but I'm going to find out because I'm going to go in there. Every time I go to the store around there, I keep saying I'm going, but I'm going to surprise her. I'm going to go right in there and look. And then if I don't see one, I'm going to ask, why isn't there one here? I'm sure going. If I live, I'm going to go. Sooner or later, I'm going to make a report to you about it, too. It's in there, it's not in there. Then if it's not in there, I'm going to ask them why. Because they ought to have. He was the creator of the blood bank. Well, we still didn't have my guests like I thought I would have had, but we would go on anyhow until you plan your program, you plan for a certain amount of time for the guests and to expel other information to the audience. And that's what I had hoped to do. But anyway, I do have some other things I want to speak on. Number one, from the national news, and we'll talk about these guns. Guns. I don't know why Congress will not pass this assault weapon ban. I don't understand it. What I say to one of my friends, I said, well, if somebody shot and killed, God forbid, Senator Cruz' son or daughter, or one of those guys like that, and they do something, even the man that's president of the National Rifle Association, I don't see why they don't need to stop not having background checks. Everybody should be checked for guns. And I want you to know there were 3,500, according to the news yesterday on the television, 3,597 children, just say grown people, children were shot and killed with guns last year in America. There's no country in the world that has this type of problem like America has, because they take the Second Amendment and twisted it. Second Amendment, Obama going after your guns. Obama going after your guns. The Second Amendment, they want to destroy the Second Amendment. It says the right to keep and bear arms. It didn't say this is the list. Tell me, our governor here in Georgia gives you the right to walk all down the street with guns. So you're creating that kind of environment. When you create that type of environment, that's the results that you're going to get. The next thing I want to talk about is we used to call it the food stamps. They don't call it anymore. It's the Supplementary Assistance Act. That's what it is. Nutrition Assistance Act. The Supplementary Nutrition Assistance Act called SNAP. Well, now they're fitting to cut that back because they did give a lot of food to people that were hungry during the pandemic. They couldn't work and all that. But we still have thousands and thousands and thousands of people in this nation below the poverty level. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of people. They got these shelters for food and everything, and banks, food banks. All this in the richest country in the world. That's what I cannot understand. And the president talked about how many million, 600, 700 billionaires, not millionaires, billionaires. A secretary rate for taxes was higher than his. Talk about the rate now. It was higher than the billionaires. 55 companies paid no taxes because they have all these sharp lawyers, financial lawyers, understand the stock market and all that type of thing. Now, let me tell you a lot of things that people don't know, and that is about the oil. The two biggest oil companies in the world, Exxon and Mobil. You know what? I don't know whether they still have this. I can't give the exact the exact figure, but this program still is in existence. When they were pumping oil, they refused to drill for more oil because they don't drill for the oil, then they're going to make what? Demand that much more, so they get a chance to get more money when you got the demand. This is one of the things that all companies have that the average person does not know, that have known for years. Let's hypothetically say that one of the oil companies produce 1 million barrels a day. Say 1 million barrels a day. Then you see, when he produce 1 million barrels a day, maybe the first 800-900 or more, they don't pay no taxes on it. So what does that mean? When they refine it and make it into gas or other substances that is used for oil, that's profit. Always a racket. All that's profit. So many barrels a day that's produced, they pay no taxes on it. So that's clear money. That's clear money. Now, when you look at the food stamps, now at the State of the Union, the president talked about the companies and all of that. He talked a great thing. And this crazy lady standing up calling the president a liar. You're a liar. You're a liar. You're a liar. She's uncouth. She has no decency. She's ignorant. You don't have to agree with the man if you want to disagree with him, but you do it in a refined manner. Let the man speak, and then if you want to respond after he speaks, that's fine. But why the man, like the man did Obama, call a man a liar? You lie. You remember that? It's awful. But all I got to say this, and if black folk had done all those type of things, if Obama had done what Trump did, he'd have been in jail a long time ago. All these people are going to jail. Pride boys are being caught right now. The Oath Keepers already been sentenced, and they're appealing 16 years. They're doing the Pride Boys right now. What did Trump say? Our Pride Boys, stand by. He did all of that. Now, the man said the other day on TV, he's going to try to play the race card in New York because that black woman is the Attorney General of the state. She's black. And then the top man in New York who will prosecute him, he's black. He needs to be in jail. That's where he needs to be. How would they let a man like that start a big lie? Out of 60 court cases, only one agreed with him. 61 cases. 60 people, judges did not agree with him. No election was stolen. Even Barr, his Attorney General, what did he say? I'm not going to use the word that he said, but the filthy word that he said, but it was no fraud in the election. He lost and can't stand to lose. Now, what is he saying now? You heard him. If I win become the president again, he'll never get in that White House again. If I get in there, he's going to what? Retribution. You know what that means? Retaliation. He's going to retaliate against all those people who did that to him. How sad. We need to see all these people during the Nixon years when the Attorney General went to jail. A lot of his men went to jail, the prison. And Trump needed to go too. He should have been in prison for what he did. Took documents to say that they belong to him. And lied. That woman signed that document saying that all the documents have been released. There are none in his residence in Florida anymore. And that was not so. So when they got the subpoena and went in and searched, they find more. And even President Biden had some, I don't know what he was thinking, that he had documents with the vice president and didn't turn them in. But he had some in his car. But his garage door was locked and nobody could take them. The fact of the matter is, I'm not going to uphold him. He was wrong to have them. He should have turned them in. But he turned them in immediately and then had to call the FBI to search to make sure there are no others in this house. He didn't do that. Trump said they belonged to him and lied about them. We don't know what he did. This man, like I said on this show a long time ago, this man, Trump, is a cancer on this nation. It's the first time in over 200 years a president did what he did. So we don't have a precedent to look at, see what happened. So like what is the name? Pence. We don't know. I hope we don't put him in jail. And then the man said he ought to have been hung. He could have hanged him. They should have hanged him. And that's what he's saying to him. He don't want to see him go to jail. Unbelievable. And how about, well, that's unprecedented. The whole thing is unprecedented. The man need to go to jail. That's where he need to go. He's not above the law. So we'll see what happened. So I was I'm so disappointed that my guest didn't show up here tonight. I'm really disappointed. But things happen in life, so I don't know what happened. Something might have happened. I know he would not have automatically refused to come. He would not have done that. Something must have happened. I'll check with him when I get home. I'll out of the show. I'm home, but I don't consider myself home when I'm here doing my business. I want to say that we have over, one more thing I want to say to you, and I talked about that, direct parole. Another thing Trump said, if he became president, think about this, he will issue a pardon for everyone that was involved in that insurrection that's been convicted. Look at that man walking through the Capitol with a big Confederate flag. Would you believe that? The judge gave him 3 years in prison. Should have been 10, no more. Can't understand. How can they allow one man to take their minds like they did? One man set up over an hour and 30 minutes while all that was going, beating the police officers with flags. One man died. Several of them were injured. Some of them, 1 or 2 of them committed suicide. 5,000 or more people coming at you. Terrible what they did to the White House. To the Capitol. And jump in the White House with not even his own daughter, son-in-law, go down there and stop this riot. He refused. The man has a mental problem. Now, they get him for that hush money to give that woman he gave that woman $180,000 to sleep with him. Ooh, Jesus. And now he's lying. And Mr. Cohen was the one who took the money to the lady. And next week he's supposed to be testifying before the grand jury. He was the number one man. He went to jail for a year for his part in that scheme. He lied, said he didn't know the lady. I read another day. He said he didn't know the lady. He didn't give her no money. He is one liar. He's not an example for this nation, I can tell you that. So a few more minutes, I'm going to have to call it for the night. I was looking for my guest, but as I stated, something must have happened. He's not here. So another thing I want to show you is this triangle. You know, that's a triangle. I'm going to show you how it worked during slavery. Now, this triangle was very instrumental in bringing slaves to America. The bottom part here, let's be like New England. They would have a lot of goods, and then what they would do, they would get on the boat, take these goods, and sail towards the West Indies. They would then take all these goods and have a business relationship with the people in West Indies, and they would sell their goods and trade their goods for molasses and sugar. They will bring that back to America, and they will make rum. They will make rum. Then they will sail to Africa and sell that rum and trade that rum. They bought slaves. They trade for slaves and stole slaves. And some of the only people sold them. And even today we have the people that we call Uncle Toms. They're here. They'll sell your people out for a few dollars. Okay. That comes all the time. They sell you out. And that went on for years and years and years, from the 1700s to the 1800s. And They wound up with over 10 million slaves. So when they brought so many slaves, they housed them. A lot of them rioted, and it comes to the place called the Middle Passage. That was the middle between where they were and where they had to come to America. So they stored, I'm going to use this terminology, they stored all these people until they could get them all to America. And what they did, they laid on the ships all tied together. Can you imagine that? Laying in their waist, by their waist. And when they get up, they had them to dance for exercise. And then they chained them all right back down. A lot of them fought and rioted it. A lot of them jumped over into the water. Rather be dead than going where they were going. Never knew going to another land, take them from their homeland. And that went on for years and years. And they were buying them and bringing them to America. At the terrible in the Middle Passage, we don't know how many thousands of black men killed themselves rather than be a slave. That's how that triangular trade thing went. And just went around a circle for years and years and years and years and years until you have what? At that time, over 10 million people working for nothing. And like Dr. King said in one of his speeches, these corporations, these same corporations that we have, this started way back there in the 18th century, 19th century. And they multiply their goods and monies and all of that, passed down through generations. So slaves really built the economy. We know eventually men like Carnegie and Rockefeller, Allman, Carnegie, all those people like that have built American economies. But like Dr. King said, they built these corporations on the backs of slaves. And even today, as I speak, they have their feet on poor blacks and poor whites. You don't think so? Why did they raise us so much hell now to give you $15 an hour? Why? You don't think you're worth that? Now, also, I didn't know till the other day, some corporates are being charged by the Labor Department. They're working children underage, cleaning up these slaughterhouses and all from animals and everything. That's against the law. All they worry about is that almighty dollar. And I still believe, as the book I read, if Dr. King had not said anything about that Vietnam War, he'd be alive today. All the time he was marching in the street, they could have been killed him, holding on arms locked with each other, walking down the middle of the street. But when he went to President Johnson, had called him in to talk with him, and please, Dr. King, please stop talking about the Vietnam War, because they were sending all the resources in the war while people starving, while people didn't have good housing, all of that. Now, for this year, the defense budget, the budget for the defense, ladies and gentlemen, is $350 billion. And I'm looking for the black lady from Chicago, from Illinois, from California, running for the Senate. She and other people asked the Biden administration to cut $10 billion away from the military business. Even President Eisenhower told American people in his last speech to keep an eye on the military complex. Building all these weapons, $350 billion. And they asked for this $10 billion to spread around the country to do things to upgrade people's lives, housing, education, medicine, all these things to make the lives better for the American people. But they want to spend $50 billion on weaponry. We got more weapons than we know what to do with. We got atomic bombs, we got hydrogen bombs, we got satellites. Now we're in space now. When Russia was the first person to put a person in space, a man named Yuri Gagarin, he was flying all around over every country in the world. He could have dropped bombs on America anywhere, anybody else. Thank God he didn't. And that's why we had to get busy and put all this money that President Kennedy says he believed that this nation ought to put a man in the moon within the next 10 years and bring him back safely to the earth. And they did that. And then we beat Russia to the moon. But the fact of the matter is, the sacrifice of people. Now they spend all this money, want to go to Mars. They don't want to take care of people here on this earth. They asked for $10 billion for education, housing, medicine for young old people, daycare, all these type of things to make the lives of the American people better. Just $10 billion away from that $350 billion that they have. Now they're messing around like this still yet, have not even approved the budget so the American government can pay the bills that they owe. It's awful. And why? The Republicans are controlling Congress by 4 votes. And that means a lot of y'all sat down and didn't get out and vote in these countries, these cities. And allowed this country to be in hostage by 4 votes. And that crazy woman agreeing. And McCarthy, that the man said this on the television, she running the thing, he's holding the title, but she's running it. 4 votes. And they would have had still control of the Congress. But we know we got the Senate because of Mr. Waldorf, and of course, that crazy boy, Herschel Walker, they used, made a fool out of him. And we already got the Jewish fellows, Oswald, I think his name is. He's a senator. So we control the Senate still. And we got the vice president to sign off if it's there time and reason, but that can't be now with the Senate that we got. But the fact of the matter, we lost the Congress, the House of Representatives. That's where all, according to the Constitution, all money matters must originate in the House of Representatives. That's why they can be the way they are. But they have to pass, and the Senate got to sign too, but they got to originate in the House of Representatives. That's the Constitution. So we got all those problems to deal with. And Mr. Biden, they talk about his age, but he's done a great job. He's done a great job as president. He's done things that no other president ever done. And Republicans are just like the old man George is doing right now. They said investigation there, the investigation this, investigating that. That's all they're doing to the American people. And they turn right there and vote for him. I don't understand it. But Biden did a lot. Now you can get the insulin $35 a month, where people are paying $350 or $300 for it. A medicine that had been developed over 100 years ago, that you should have been buying it cheap. It's a shame. I have to get medicine in my eye, and my small thing on my hand. That's the size of the little bottle of the medicine is in. $85. It's a disgrace. You go to Canada, you see all these medicine, and it's 30 to 40% cheaper than in America. It's terrible. Way to rip off the American people. You heard the president speak about on your bills, you done got some little money for this, a little money for that. You need to stop all of that. Taking advantage of the American people. Taking advantage of the American people. But anyway, my time is about over now. Like I said, I regret my guests did not come because there were some questions that I needed to ask him, particularly if I went at the mayor, because we got some serious problems in the city as far as I'm concerned. And not only me, many others. And we got a critical election coming up this year. And people need to run for office. They need to stand up and defend their position. Tell us what you have done. Tell us what your aspirations are, what you hope to achieve to make lives better for the people in the city. And stand up even today, like a white gentleman said to me, to a meeting I left out of one day last year. But Mr. Thornton, I said, yes. I was at a meeting he was in. He said, when are they going to take all those Confederate things out of Forsyth Park? I don't know why the city government not doing anything about it. Nobody's speaking out. And yet, when I look at the TV last year in Richmond, Virginia, the biggest statue there is to be held was being taken down, and it was Robert E. Lee. I just saw the big cranes taking that gigantic statue down. It didn't come down just because it said, let's take it down. The people, the leaders in the government spoke out against it. I don't understand myself. Everybody don't speak out. I don't think there's a lot of wrongdoings and nobody says nothing. Nobody says nothing. And last time I'm going to say this here, as far as local, I thought I had, my guest had been local, but this gentleman right here, if we had more men like him, this would be a great city. I tell you, that's Dr. Ralph Mark Gilbert, pastor of the First Baptist Church when he came in 1939. He was a brilliant man. He started, the NAACP was down to nothing. He survived the NAACP. Then he went throughout the state of Georgia and set up 40 chapters of the NAACP, the largest in the country. And his wife, she's 101 years old in New York today. She's in the hospital sick, but she's doing much better. I called her yesterday. She's improving. She's 101 years old. She went all over Georgia getting membership for the NAACP. We could not even vote, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we need to know about our history. People need to talk about these things so you'll know. You haven't always been able to walk in a store. A Crystal and them kind of, there wasn't no Crystal, no Burger King then, but it sure had Tanner's. Sure had Tanner's down there, but it was on Drayton Street then. You couldn't go in there. Dr. Gilbert helped raise the money. We couldn't even vote. The only way you could vote is for the president in the South. He and Ms. Gilbert and NAACP set up 40 chapters, and they meet every year. They got a state conference. He did all of that. He called the first black police officer to be in Georgia, in Savannah. No wonder Dr. King said that Savannah was the most integrated place in the South. But Dr. Gilbert did a lot to do that. He raised money for what he called the Primus case. It was a minister in Columbia, South Carolina, Columbus, Georgia. Filed a suit in the federal court. And South Carolina, Georgia was tied into the area, which was the judge was in Texas. That's where the case was argued. And he had a lot to do with raising the money for it. Sure did now. And he was a dramatist with Easter players in the city. On Easter morning, nobody went to the churches. We all at the municipal auditorium. 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 buses running early in the morning to see the one-act plays. I was in a lot of the plays. They're beautiful. And we don't have no leadership like that now in Savannah. We don't have it. Nobody speaks out on nothing. You can't get nowhere when you're like that. You got to take a stand. I'm not asking anybody to recapitulate, but have some backbone. Have some backbone to speak out on issues. That's what I'm missing today. I don't know, but two people in this city speak. I'll speak out on this show, and Reverend Leonard Smalls, I got to give him credit for that. Several years ago, the man put something on the school board talking about this is your mama and all that. That man spoke out on that. And Reverend Mitchell, God bless him in his grave, he spoke out. That's why you got the Martin Luther King berets right now hitting the holiday night because he took the leadership along with the organization, the Ministerial Alliance. I got to say that, and I got to give those men credit. But I'm talking about somebody speaking out. And that's what we need to have. So many things going wrong in here. So like those people, the superintendent understands she's leaving in June, but I thought she had a 2-year contract. I was shocked when I heard that. But white folk coming down there all the time raising hell with that woman. She's doing the best she can running the school system. Very qualified. I don't know why they like that. I really don't. I really don't know why they like that. I don't know. But Savannah's not like it used to be. I can tell you that. We got to take people. We got to get out. We got to keep voting. We just can't sit down and don't take a stand on things that are happening. Because you see what they're doing. They're trying to put back us where we were. But we're not going back to that. But if you don't take a stand, they push you back. We have just about all the big cities in this country run by black mayors here. And we got all this poverty in this nation and in this city. I've been hearing 32% poverty for the longest. 32% poverty. These men in the jail just round the corner, round and round, revolving door and crying. Nobody working with them. Nobody having the corporations and businesses here. How many black men unemployed would you hire? Get them and train them in the prison for working. The Bible says a man don't work, you don't eat. That's not my words, in the word of God. But we got to have help. And that's why I'm trying to tell people what we need to do in this city to make it better for our people. And we got to do something about our young people. The churches have no Sunday schools no more. Parents are not doing their job. But God hold you responsible. I want you to know that, parents. They used to say on the TV sometimes, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? Do you know where they are? That don't happen no more. Getting hold of guns and killing, and it's awful. So we got to be better than ever with our people. We got to train our people. We got to let them know about God. We got to send them to church. They don't do it. Church is empty for the churches on Sunday. But how the church is going to reproduce and be for the next generation? Everybody dying out and you got nobody to take their places. Well, anyway, I just want to express myself. I thank God for how I'm going on 90 years old, and I ain't going to never stop. I've been working with this community since I was 17. I met all these powerful people, Thurgood Marshall, Dr. King, I just told you about Ms. Motley, all these wonderful people. Not to mention in Atlanta, Dr. Dennis, Dr. Howard, I believe his name, powerful man in Atlanta. And John Wesley Daub, big Mason man. All the people I met, all the people inspired me. They inspired me. Mr. Law, Mr. Gaston, all of them inspired me. When I was a young man, Reverend Stell, first county commission. So we had to fight. And that because we worked together as a people in this city. Now, there's so much chaos going on in city government. Why is that deep? Got to work together. Unity. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've said my say tonight. And I hope that you've enjoyed the show. I'm not a perfect man, but I try to bring everything best I could. I believe in speaking. I believe in my people. And believe in educating our children. They're trying to wreck us. Don't want our history to be told. How ridiculous that is. You can't whitewash that. What's been done has been done. Try to move forward from it. Like Mr. Farrakhan said, no, you didn't do this to us. Your former people in the past did this. But you ain't trying to make the condition better because you got the resources and everything. They'll make things better. So in reality, you're just as bad as the people that did this in the first place. One man worth $240 billion. $240 billion. And all this poverty around him. You'll die and leave every bit of it here. But that's what happened in the past. That's why money's been passed down through generations. And then, like Dr. King said, slaves built this economy, and they're still taking exploitation of poor whites and poor blacks to this day. And that is the truth. So I thank you, ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the end of our program tonight. And I want to say we living in a world where we want everyone to have equality of opportunity, and we keep working to become a reality. Because when it does, the future generations will be the beneficiary of all our struggle and all of our work. Thank you for listening. And if you wish to contact me, 925-1034, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. Not foolishness. I don't have time for that. But if you have a serious question, a serious comment, I will entertain that. Thank you very much. God bless you, and have a good evening.
like this.